The talk is by Professor Pietro Garibaldi from the University of Torino, and is co-authored by Jesper Moen of the Norwegian Business School, and by Professor Christopher Pissaridis of London School of Academics. And by the way, Professor Pissaridis is a Nobel laureate. He was given the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2010. And I hope Pietro is there. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so I give the word to Pietro, so you can start. So the title of the talk is Modeling Context and Transition in the SIR Epidemic Model.
Okay, so you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Fabrizio. It's a huge honor for me to be here and having the chance to talking about recent work we have been doing on these tremendous times. And so I really appreciate the idea of being involved into cross-field research and realizing, like you just say, that really we can learn from each other a lot. This joint work with, as you say, with Jesper Moen at Oslo Norwegian Business School and Chris Pissaridis from the London School of Economics. So let me introduce our work. So the SIR model, which the original contribution, the original write down of the wonderful differential equation is 1927 by Kermack and Cambridge, seems to be a workhorse model with epidemiology for analyzing the spread of the disease, where the SIR stands for susceptible, infected, and controlled. So the idea is that you have an exogenous zero patient that is entering the system, and then basically through a set of structural parameters, basically the number of infected increase, peaks and falls, and eventually there is what we call a steady state in which society obtains herd immunity. And the key structural parameter is the transmission rate, which is something that already everybody has learned to read in newspapers. The R0, which is around 2.4 for the COVID, is the key, because it's the rate at which susceptible people are actually infected. This rate in the model, in the original model, is an exogenous structural parameter. What it is clear is that this depends on individual behavior in various dimensions. What the director just said, that shows that each organization is actually responding to the outbreak. And that's one of our main contributions, is to make this endogenous. Basically, we realized that we could use some of the techniques from the search and matching literature pioneered by one of our co-authors, so basically one of us, and Chris Pissaridis in particular, we laid the Mortis and around the late 80s and early 90s. In some sense, there is some similarity, some basic similarity between getting the disease and getting the job. Of course, in terms of lifetime utility, it's very different, the impact of getting a disease, but some of the concepts are clearly there. So one of the key contributions is introducing a contact function, which is similar to what we've been using in the labor market for the matching function. It's quite related to the probability of being infected, but depends on social activity in society, which we call X in this thing. And X will be a variable that is partly in control of the individuals, because agents in solving their own problem, they will trade off the gains from activity, because X activity brings utility to the people, with the cost of contracting the disease, given rational expectation about the development of the disease. So something that was clearly from the introduction, that we individuals, I think it's inherent in the Homo sapiens, but we individuals, we are basically behaving and responding optimal to the information that we have. And rational expectation, it's one of the key ideas that was introduced in economics around the 60s and the 70s. Agents know the model and take into account the equation of the model. So basically, it's really introducing rational forward-looking behavior in the standard SIR model. What's this lead to? that by having an endogenous behavioral response? Well, first, that if you test our model against a standard SIR model, you have basically that fewer number of people are infected. So you end up with more susceptible people. And so you reach herd immunity with fewer sick. Okay? Which some interesting conclusion. And then there is a conjecture in the paper. There is a conjecture that is still not proved, and I will get back to this, is that basically herd immunity may be reached with the lowest possible number of aggregate of people being infected. Okay, so that's basically that this forward-looking behavior brings society to become immune with the lowest number of people infected. Now, as economists, we are also obsessed with centralized and welfare implication of our theories, and so I will try to discuss that beyond the decentralized model in which individuals choose, taking as given the aggregate behavior, we also solve the central planner, which is basically we are sort of naive in believing that there is a benevolent dictator that when making decision takes into account the impact of our choices on the rest of society, which at an individual level is impossible because we are too small. And so this creates externalities. And very often when you solve the individual problem and the centralized problem, you get differences. Okay, these are called externalities in economics. And there are a variety of those. And there are varieties which make it impossible, the research is also partly in progress, to say whether under all circumstances, the central authorities, the central planner wants to reduce activity more than individual. Because there will be in the paper, there is first a contact externalities, whether will depend whether this contact function, which is one of our key innovation, has some properties of scale, which I will come back to, basically whether it is increasing or constantly returning to scale. If it's going to be increasing return to scale, and I come back to the meaning of this, then you want to restrict activity more vis-a-vis what the single individual wants to do. Then there is a medical externality. Clearly, if you get sick, basically, you are going to, if there is constraint on the hospital, which you clearly see, basically, you increase the cost to the rest of society for the next person being sick. If that is the case, there is what we call a medical externalities. Then, obviously, the central planner take this into account and tend to tell you stay home, reduce activity. Then there is a contagion externality. We don't want to get immune, it's costly to us. But you don't want to get the disease. But once you get it, other people are more likely to get it. That's also another externality. So all those three tend the central planner to reduce more than what the individual does. But then there is another channel, which is the immune externalities. When you become immune, okay, you contribute to society, basically, to slow down the spread of the disease. By these externalities, so you bring welfare to society by getting the disease. That's basically the central planner realize this and maybe want to restrict less activity. So you cannot determine a priori what is the optimal behavior at a society level. Now, the economic literature, right, we are economists, so of course we are only restricted to economics literature, has responded, like probably most fields, quite extensively in studying the COVID, and basically the CPR, the network, the Center for Economic Policy Research, which is a key European network, has also initiated a journal which is vetted in real-time papers, so basically borrowing from the medical fields, and so making available early research to a larger variety of communities, and also by vetting these people. And so, already 8 issues in 2 weeks, and people, very senior people in the field on both sides of the Atlantic are actually contributing to this literature. Now, let me go into details. What is this contact function? Now, contact function in a given period will tell you basically the number of contacts. So it just measures how many contacts there are, depending on the average level of activity. So it's an aggregate function which depends on the average level of activity that may lead to contagion. What you mean by average level activity? There are different types of activity. Just some of these activities are purely social, like meeting in a coffee shop, or it could be more related to pure economics, like how many hours to spend in the office. So, and Xbar, okay. So I will insist between the difference between Xbar and X. Xbar is the average level of activity. And now the properties of this function is actually very important for a variety of reasons, including social welfare, is that as this function, what as economists tend to call as constant or increasing return to scale. Mathematically, this means whether the function is homogeneous of degree 1, that's constant return to scale, or is homogeneous of degree 2 or something more, or even larger than 1, that's increasing return to scale. Now, let's try to be very pragmatic and talk about this. So let's think me and my cohort, or we can meet once in the morning, or we can meet physically twice, okay? One in the morning and one in the afternoon is just the two of us. Then the probability of getting the disease, if we double the meetings, it doubles. Now, but let's think of all our cohorts, right, that if we meet for the workshop, okay? By doing that in a given physical space, but if we double the meeting, then in a congested place, then the probability of getting disease, it's more than double. Okay, if all of us would meet today in the Polytechnic in Torino, it would really more than double if rather than meeting on the court. That's the idea of increasing return to scale. Okay, and in some sense, while in the labor market we tend to push to probably the constant return to scale, in these cases, and this will be an empirical work for the future, maybe increasing return to scale is more relevant. Now, what is very important, and I will stress over and over again during my time, is that X bar is behind the individual control. The individual control, you have zero mask with the rest of society. Whatever you do, you take as given what the rest of the people. So X bar, it's something that you take it as given when you're making your own key decision. So you only have an impact on X, okay? So you will decide how much activity to undertake given what the other people do, given X bar. So the number of contacts per person with activity level X will be X times P of X, where P of X is just the number of contacts divided by the activity X. And this, we have been using this in a search intensity, like this is coming in terms of cross-field of an unemployed deciding how much to search for a job, okay? So X versus X bar, it's very important. Now, the law of motion, okay, so there will be state and value function. That's how we think about model. The states are the simplest free states of the SIR model. We know that there are lots of variety of SIR, but here we start really with the basic one, where ST is the susceptible, IT are the infected, RT are the recovered. And they sum up to N, and then we make some strong and bold assumptions. First, people don't know, which is partly true in it's like also the rector will say, people don't know if they are susceptible or infected. So therefore, they will have the same activity level. We don't model different in the fact that you are asymptomatic, basically. You are like a susceptible in terms of behavior. Then this implies, given this assumption, that the number of individuals that are getting infected in a period, it depends on this M of X bar, which depends, of course, on the average activity, K, which is a transmission probability per contact, which really depends on how tough is the disease, times IT over N, which is basically the probability that this contact is with an infected person. If you want to aggregate and get a total infection, then you multiply by ST. Okay, so that's similar to what people do in the SIR model. But then we normalize probability N to 1. So that means also that we don't. They're not going to be death. So we take population constant. So this disease, nobody's going to die. And the probability of being infected for a person X is going to be XT, taking as given X bar, okay, KP of X bar and IT, and you will have. And then some other bold assumption is that basically we will take one period to be 2 weeks, which is typically the time in which this horrible disease takes place. So individuals will are contagious for one period, then they suffer like crazy and they recover next week. Okay? So there will be a huge cost, but it will be very quick vis-a-vis the rest of your lifetime, because individual potentially live forever, which unfortunately is not true, but that's what, as economists, tends to believe. Okay, so the law of motion, this becomes very close to the standard SIR. Basically, these are the set of difference equations we are doing in discrete time. That is the dynamics of the state variables. We have three states, ST, IT, and RT, and basically given our assumption that the infected are just this K, M of X, Xbar times ST, IT. So that's very similar, and then with this assumption that you are sick for 1 day, then they recover tomorrow, it's just the sum of the recovered today, and then the dynamics of the susceptible. So this shows you how close we are to the SIR model. But of course, you need to solve for this Xbar, and then you have to start beyond state equation. We also need a value function. Okay, value function, because people are rational agents. We choose. Okay, what people choose, they maximize utility. Utility is some function which typically we assume is concave. Utility per period. So the object in life of an individual is maximize his lifetime utility, so utility over the infinite future, but it has some utility per period, which it's governed by a function phi of x, which is concave. Typically, we always think about the decrease in marginal utility, so it's a concave function, and it's a single maximum. It's a very simple function, which x1 is the maximum in a given period. Now, the value function, which are the NPV, that stands for net present value, that's basically the lifetime value of being recovered, is what? So if you get the disease and you go and you pass of it, then people have a discount factor. That's very important in economics, that people they have a bias, short-term bias. You care more about the present more than the future, okay, so beta, it's less than 1, and what's the NPV? What's the present discounted value of being recovered? It's basically, from that moment onward, you will obtain this maximum of utility at the level of x1 forever after. Okay? That's the value of life for a recovered people. How about being infected? Okay, these are the easy ones, because the difficult one will be the susceptible. What's the value, the lifetime value of being infected? Here again, you make a strong but simplifying assumption, which I think is nice, in the sense that, okay, being infected, it's an horrible cost. It's an horrible cost in the sense that it will take away a cut of the value of life of a recovery. Okay, you are going to suffer like crazy for one period, and so basically the value of being infected is only 1 minus g with respect to the value of a recovery. So, and this g, that's very important. This g depends on how many people are infected. So this thing that there is a relationship between G and I, where G prime is actually increasing, that gives you exactly the sense that this cost is going to be larger the more capacity constraint you have in the hospital. And that's, of course, will point to the externalities. Now, the key part, it's about how the susceptible behavior, how the susceptible people behave. Now, that's all depend on there is a value function, it's the standard dynamic programming for it. So you have to look for a value VST, which is the lifetime value, of course, over the infinite future. But this is, here, there is the certainty about whether you get the disease. So what's the value of being susceptible today? Then is a standard dynamic programming problem, which you're going to maximize over an infinite horizon, but spending 2 periods. You get the best utility today, and then taking into account that what can happen next period. I choose XT, how much activity to do today, but then I know that I can get the disease with some probability, which also depends on what other people do. They depend on Xbar, and then I'm going to suffer like crazy, or I might get along without getting the disease, and then I will get the value of being susceptible tomorrow. But that, of course, will change with respect to what is today. And then you have a first order condition, because people maximize it in each point in time from here to forever, and then you get it in any point in time, the marginal gain, the marginal utility, this phi prime of xt, must equal to the expected cost, expected being susceptible tomorrow versus being sick. So this looks like pretty much like an asset in finance. Okay, basically that's what people do. At each point in time, they maximize an asset, and this asset is the value of their own life. Now, that leads me to the definition of equilibrium. We have basically a decentralized epidemic equilibrium is a set of sequence state variables, so this ST, IT, RT, a value function VS, ST, which is the key value function, the value of being susceptible, and a sequence of social contacts. So you immediately solve for sequences for all t from 0 to forever that given initial conditions, so there are the patient 0 is exogenous, then the law of motion of the SIR model are satisfied, the asset equation of the value of being susceptible is satisfied, and xt solve the optimal behavior from each time from here to forever. Now let me, of course I don't have much time, let me just give you a sense of how this equilibrium looked like. Okay, the numbers, it's not, I mean, it's theory piece at this stage, the simulation are coherent with an R0, the initial thing of 2.2, but basically what you find, here the periods are very long because it's one period is basically 2 weeks, you will see that this disease, basically 50% of the people get it in steady state, and many people, the second chart, get infected right away, and then infections dies out and tends to 0 as people reach herd immunity. Here you reach herd immunity with 50% of the disease. But what is important is the third one. People dramatically reduce activity right away because they know that it is the disease, they know that it's very costly, and it's optimal to do what? Reduce X. You reduce activity, you shut down in your home. That's what Homo sapiens has been doing for the last 250,000 years. They see the disease at some point and they react. They reduce it here in the simulation, they reduce 50%, and then slowly they go back to their own steady state activity, which of course is reached as herd immunity is obtained. And then the total case is the curve that we typically tend to say. Okay, let's say, okay, but that is not so different. I mean, there is X, but what does this suggest vis-a-vis a standard SIR model? You need a comparison to judge a model with a comparison. Let's use our comparison of this model with optimizing behavior with what people do a standard SIR model. Of course, standard SIR model is R0. We all know R0. It's even the newspaper talk about R0. What's basically the benchmark case? The optimal case that let's take an R0 in which, of course, X1 is constant because in basic SIR model, which are wonderful and leads to this herd immunity, you have this R0 that is taken initially as constant throughout, and we put the level of activity that is not going to be changed forever for the entire, that will be reached by this, the individual agents when they are immune in steady state. And so there will be no response. So if you compare, what do you find, okay? Now look at the first chart, or the first or the second is just for a fewer person. You see immediately is that basically standard SIR is a landslide. Standard SIR, basically it's very quick, this disease spread like crazy, but people don't adjust activity, people don't respond. And what you get is that by the power of SIR, that immunity is reached very quickly. But 90% of the people with the same parameters get the disease, while the optimal behavior only 50%. Okay. So the red curve is identical to the curve that I've been showing before, but here I show you really the difference against a standard SIR model in terms of basically fewer people are infected. And so, as I was telling you, the third and fourth chart is really that in these cases, it's 90% in the standard SIR. Very quickly, very later. Or the other, not that. Now, herd immunity. There is something very important. This is, if you read and learn basically the SIR model, which is the differential equation are far from trivial and they are highly nonlinear, basically population ends with herd immunity. And the key reproduction parameter is R0, which is what is R0 in our model, basically K of M of X1. I mean, that's how we interpret. And there is a result that there is the highest value of S consistent with herd immunity is the inverse of R0. Okay, so basically, what is the minimum number of people infected or the maximum number of people that remain safe and susceptible after herd immunity is the inverse of R0. Typically, in standard SIR model, S infinity is less than S max. That's very important. In this model, S infinity is that once you reach steady state, the level of susceptible is lower than this S max. So more people are infected than minimum S. Now, that's a standard. I mean, that's you learn things. What's what's the value? Here there is a big conjecture that we are calling the Moen conjecture. It's coming from one of us, but maybe, is that potentially in optimal forward-looking behavior means that S infinity is equal to S max. So that's no matter what, okay? And this is, if this conjecture is true, we think that this is going to be an important result, because we really show you that by forward-looking behavior, you tend to reach basically the minimum number of sick possible given the size of the disease. So basically, really how Homo sapiens, how strong it is Homo sapiens. Of course, this is just a conjecture at this point. It is not a math proof. It seems to be that you need two conditions at least. Beta high enough. You need to be enough forward-looking. I told you that our individuals, the Homo economicus, has basically a short-term bias, and then G large enough. Of course, if this was just a flu, of course, you would not spare young behavior. So you need enough to be the disease to be enough costly. Now, I have probably 6-7 minutes. Let me quickly tell you about the planner. I told you that we have this idea that there is also a benevolent dictator behind us, that what we are governed, and that's probably the naive part, that beyond the decentralized equilibrium, there is somebody that chooses XT, knowing the effect of your own behavior on the rest of society. Of course, the individual cannot do it because it's too small, but there is somebody, basically for the central planner, there is no difference between XT and Xbar, because he knows that by doing something, the representative agent is influenced Xbar. Okay? Then what is a benevolent dictator because it maximizes the utility of the representative agent. And then he solves a similar problem, okay? He solves a similar dynamic programming problem, much more complicated because there are all these state variables that play a role in his optimal decision. In fact, the first order condition is much more complicated, but all these externality shows up. Let me go to the intuition rather than the details math. So, which externalities are there? Now, first there is the contact externalities. Basically, the contact externalities is that if this function has increasing return to scale, which is probably likely, then the individual, they look similar, the decision of the planner and the decision of the individual vis-a-vis these things. That the individual knows there is a contact externalities, but is ignoring the effect of society is this function is increasing return to scale. So we would end up basically, if there is increasing return to scale without the lockdown, we would end up doing physically the meeting rather than being here very distant from each other because we are in lockdown. So in that sense, that's what the math says. And then there is the medical externality, which is the total number of infected people influence the cost of being infected. That's clear. You don't take into account, I mean, you suffer, you don't want to take the disease, but you don't take into account that by taking the disease, you increase the cost of the next guy because capacity will be restrained in the hospitals. And there is the contagion externality that you also, when you behave in choosing X by reducing the individual, by just taking into account that you don't want to get the disease. You don't really care the fact that other people are going to get the disease thereafter. But then there is these immunity externalities that if you become immune, you will contribute to the transmission of that. So we cannot sign a priori, this is part of the research which is ongoing, of what is basically the optimal responses. And here again, we have examples that there might be some strange results. An important thing is that remember that the central planner has something more. He has the power of taxation. He can enforce behavior. So suppose we have in the paper we also have the idea of vaccine. Suppose there is no vaccine. Basically also that this thing is not going to be there. There are no medical externalities and no contact externalities. So, and beta is close to 1. Of course, you need assumptions. So in this case, what the planner wants to do? The planner wants basically go quickly to herd immunity. There is no way that we are going to be safe. The only way is that we get herd immunity. But individuals, what do? Individuals? They say, okay, I lock myself in the house because I want the other to get a disease and I will survive. And what the central planner does, he lock on your door and say, go out, and I tax you if you stay home. So this is an incredible world, very different than when we are, in which basically we'll be taxed if we stay at home. Okay, it's not probably this one. It's not. Maybe it's more the second one. The vaccine may come. So there is a vaccine in the case, and so basically the planner chooses a low X and waits for the vaccine. That's probably what the planner is doing now. There is some probability, or he knows that the vaccine will come, and it's chosen a very low X, so we are all physically first. And in this case, the immunity externality is strongly reduced, and then the individuals tend to reduce it to IX. Okay, so if we are in the second case, which probably, if you look at society now, then we have been locked down by the central planner more than we would have done by our own decision, which is still very rational. I mean, that's let me conclude and thank you, of course. So we did extend the SIR model by having this R0 depending on the aggregate contact rate in society. It's clearly that this depends on individual agent, depends by rational forward-looking agents, and it seems to be that these Homo sapiens, by being forward-looking, reach in steady state. It's a conjecture, okay, by the minimum amount of causality. So if this is true, more generally, it tends to be true. In simulation, we still have not found a counterexample, but that's not enough, as we all know. That I think it's one of the most important reasons. Still, that doesn't mean that it's optimal for the society point of view. What it might be, and again, it's part of what we are studying in the computer these days, is that finding that if you internalize the externalities, what is going to be the optimal behavior? Because even if you reach this steady state behavior, it doesn't imply that it's optimal from the society standpoint at any point in time. And of course, there is more to do, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we also should try the virtual applause, let's say. Okay, perfect. Mute. You should unmute. Okay.
So I don't know if I have a question. That's
okay. We do have questions. Okay. Sorry, we do have questions. There was a question by Patrizio, I think. Patrizio, are you there?
Okay, there is something about rationality. Yes. Okay, I see. No.
Patrizio?
Yes, we have a question from Patrizio. Patrizio, you can speak now.
I see many
questions. I don't know if you can.
Yes, hear. We can hear you. Can you switch on Can you switch on the monitor?
Yeah, but it's not working. I don't know why.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so thank you for your talk that I found really inspiring. So, as far as I understand, there are two important contributions here. The first one is the, let's say, extension of the SIR model with the introduction of a state-dependent probability coefficient that is given by this function m. And the second is the introduction of cost functions going, let's say, somehow in different directions, so allowing the use of optimal Nash strategies in a mean-field paradigm. So, of course, this can be important for what is called phase 2, at least in Italy. And at this regard, my question is about the role of data, the past ones on the number of diagnosed infected people, or people that are hospitalized, and so on, but also future data that can be collected in phase 2 with, let's say, a strong campaign of detection through swabs, through, let's say, serological testing, and the contact tracing through dedicated apps. So I wonder if the model is flexible enough to account for all this future available data in order to fit, let's say, possible scenarios that can arise from after the lockdown measures are relieved. And if the model allows some sort of short-time prediction of what's going to happen in this second phase, depending on the more freedom we have, and so on. Because mean field, the value function goes backward, and the state variables go forward. So I don't know what is the I don't understand what is the predictive value of the model in this sense. Okay. So sorry, maybe I've lost something, but this is the question. If it is say more convenient to enrich the model with more states that accounts for more, let's say, possibilities of the total distribution.
Okay, so shall I reply?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I could not find the video of the person that was.
No, unfortunately, the video was off. Okay.
So I was looking at it. Okay, so thanks a lot. And now, yes, in some sense, the contribution you sort of summarize. This is it's clearly at this point is a theory piece. It's just basically of basically this how economists with their tools, which is basically rational agents, would say that exactly to have this probability state dependent is exactly true. So this basically these are zeros now a function like still like you say with itself. Now I don't know if I answer fully. Now we make some strong assumption, of course. Now the beta you say is not the beta, maybe it's not the beta of our paper because beta for us is a discount rate. So maybe you put beta in the SIR model. That's something we had to change and we did it. Now we have made strong assumption there because the trade-off when you write these models is basically elegance versus solvability and capability, and we wanted to get the first go, which was fairly simple and turned out to be not that simple. So initially we started with the SIR model, SEIR, but then and so modeling the fourth state. Then it's getting more and more complicated because remember that each time the SIR practitioners add a state, okay, we also need to add the value functions, okay, because for each state the individual is an optimal behavior, okay, and that's it gets quite complicated. Of course, there is data. This is data work has to be done. For example, I expect if this is going to be successful, I expect more applied people like econometricians basically find structural estimation and back out from the data an XT. You need to have some functional approximation, and econometric has been done huge progress. Okay? And basically, you will find you back out from the data the value of X and the response that society has been doing. Now, in terms of short run, that's more difficult. Economics, for the way it is done, is not really real time. That having estimates these things in real time, that I think is still more difficult in that sense. And I also insist that it has some policy implications. Of course, you need the number, but one important contribution is that what society does is only what the central planner does. Of course, we are naive because we think they are both rational and forward-looking. Yes, but that's our paradigm. That's the way we think about it. And there are different things. Of course, there is limited rationality. Clearly, there is limited rationality. One can extend these things with limited rationality that basically you don't know. We also thought about it. You don't know whether you are sick or exposed, and then what is your behavior? You average between the two, okay? Because you don't know your own state. But of course, then at the end of the day, when you write down the paper, you need to make the result bold, and that's the first goal. But of course, it's
okay. Okay, thank you very much for the answer, because I think that the role of asymptomatic infective is very important, also in phase 2. So that's why I asked this question.
No, now I see. Now I see.
Yeah, sure.
No.
I succeed in. Thank you very much again.
Okay, I think we have time for another question, and then we will have a short coffee break. Maybe Giulio.
Okay. Yeah, we have a question from Julia. Julia,
Okay.
I'm going to give you possibility to speak now. Yeah, you can now.
Okay, so well, thanks a lot for the very interesting talk. My question is about considering the possibility of dying from the disease, which you have currently neglected. So could you maybe outline how the outcome of your model would possibly change if the rational agents were aware of a significant risk of death due to the disease, and maybe also possibly partition the agents into different categories, some who have a higher risk of dying and others who have a smaller risk. Do you have any expectations on how the model would behave in this case?
Yeah, they are very good questions, both, clearly. Now, let me start from the second one, heterogeneity. That's the first way to go, for example. So the next, once we have a full understanding, which we still don't have, for example, with the central panel, then you want to have heterogeneity. So that how we would model heterogeneity, that's simple for economists, is that basically is a utility function. There are two types of utility function. Okay, that's one way, and so there are different type of people, and of course they will have different behavior. Each one will have its own optimal behavior, which will make it even more complicated for the central planner, because it takes into account the fact that individuals are heterogeneous, and then they don't take into account the effect on their own type, but also the other type. So all this becomes computationally difficult, but that's obviously a way to go. And if you want to take it to the data things, then the thing is aging. This individual, that's partly into the second. Aging is that it's not that the individuals are different, but there is aging. So basically, at each point in time, there is a distribution of people at different age in their lifetime, which is what societies do. Okay, so that basically we are all rational and forward-looking, but we age. Okay, and that force these increase the probabilities. All these are obvious extension that should be done. The death, we took the standard ways because, as you know, that's make it very simple in this differential equation that basically you divide it by a number, which is 1. Okay. Otherwise, the state variables, the state equation, the difference equation becomes much more cumbersome. It was really things, and then economically, I mean, death is just. I mean, we are so. Horrible in the sense it's how costly it is. It's just okay. At the end of the day, is that it's in terms of modeling would be just increasing the cost of the disease, in terms of expectation. But it had huge impact, which you all know by working with this paper, on the difference equation and the differential equation, because of the denominator that you have.
So. Thank you again. I think we don't have time for other questions, otherwise our coffee break will be too short. So thank you again, Pietro. I think it was really, really interesting. And so maybe we can try another applause. Okay.